Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. I just listened to another Women of Marvel podcast, one that just came out, and it is a year in review talking about what they did over the last year. And you have Sana Amanat, who is second in command at Marvel, and Judy, who is the other one who runs a podcast, talking to two of the major editors at Marvel. And this is very important because I'm always saying that editing is one of the problems with Marvel. The fact that their editing department is not doing its job correctly is one of the major reasons why Marvel is doing so poorly, and they are killing the company and killing the brand. And I have confirmation in this podcast of a lot of the things that I've been talking about in my other videos, because usually I pull together as much information as I can and then put out a theory or a supposition of what I think is the most probable of going on at Marvel. And in this podcast, I have confirmation of a couple of those points that I have been talking about, and very significant points of confirmation. And they all lead up to two main points that I'm going to get to at the end of this video. Number one being that ComicsGate is going to be needed more than ever in 2019. And number one directly comes from number two, which is the fact that in 2019, whether you like it or not, Captain Marvel is going to be shoved down your throat by Marvel in every way possible. And that's where I'm going to end up at. But I want to go over those little bits of confirmation from what I've been saying before, just to show you where I'm going with this to begin with. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is what I've been saying in a number of my videos, that Marvel and its internship program is just a political ideology test. It's a way to get people into the system of Marvel without actually having to go through proper hiring practices where they would be beholden to the law in order for them not to be biased. So they do this so that they can put these people through a purity test. And in this podcast, I have, at the very least, I would say, semi-confirmation of that fact. Because you have Sana Amanat talking about when she was at Marvel being an editor about 10 years ago. And she's talking about a person who was her worst intern at that time. Now, she says this tongue-in-cheek, but literally everything in these podcasts is said tongue-in-cheek. Why? So that if they get caught saying something that they shouldn't have said, they have it out and saying, well, it's just a joke, I really didn't mean it. And that's why they're laughing all the time throughout all of these podcasts. But I would say that most of the stuff that they have said actually has not just a grain of truth, but is very true. Now, this person that Sana Amanat says she ribs all the time, and that was the worst intern she ever had, is Donny Cates. Now, Donny Cates right now is writing at least, I would say, half a dozen books for Marvel. But 10 years ago, when he was an intern, he was the worst intern Sana Amanat ever had. So he moved up the ladder, and he moved up the ladder significantly within 10 years. But the question has to be asked, if he was such a poor intern, how in the world did he even start to move up the ladder at Marvel? Well, the answer, I would say, is quite obvious. First of all, Sana Amanat says he did have a passion for comics, he just couldn't really do the job very well. And the thing is, the reason why he worked his way up is because, of course, this political ideology test is what happens when you're an intern. It has nothing to do with merit and how you can work within the system. It's if you can be whipped enough so that you will be able to do exactly what they say, and whipped by a far leftist whip, I would say, by the way. And that's what this test is for. That's what they're trying to do with their internship program, is to determine whether or not you can be whipped enough to do so. And Donny Cates fit that bill. And so that's my, I would say, semi-confirmation of that fact, that the internship program doesn't have anything to do with merit. Now, the second one is connected a little bit to the first one, the confirmation of the fact that when they bring in other people, not just these interns, but these people that Sana Amanat has said, we will go out and find you, those kind of people, where and how do they do that? Again, I said that it was also through a political ideology test. The reason why they say, I'm going to go out and find you, is again, so that they don't have to be unbiased, because, again, if they would hire somebody according to a regular means, they would have to follow the law and make sure that they didn't discriminate against people according to their political ideology or a number of different factors. But of course, they go out and handpick people so that they can get around this fact, and they can just hire the people who are very much like them. And you have one of these editors in this podcast talking about bringing someone on who is now writing for Marvel. Her name is Shauna McGuire, and here's the quote that she says. "I'm so excited that Shauna McGuire is working for Marvel now. I brought her in. I read a short story she had written in a science fiction anthology, and I thought to myself, this person should be writing X-Men. And then I looked at her Twitter, and it was all about, I should be writing X-Men. So, what's the takeaway from this? The takeaway is this. Here's what this editor did in order to get this person on board at Marvel. She read something that appealed to her in a science fiction anthology. And her step number 2 was to go look at that person's Twitter account. That is to say, to go look at their social media. Now, if you're actually thinking of hiring someone as a writer, going to their social media is going to give you nothing. You are not going to find anything of merit or their merit-based work on Twitter. It's not going to be there. Why in the world would their second step be go to Twitter? Why? Because, of course, again, you need to confirm that this person has the correct ideology. Now, there was another one of these podcasts. It was actually a panel that I covered. And one of the people, again, said tongue-in-cheek that if you want to work for Marvel, make sure you never say anything bad about Marvel on your social media. And then they all laughed about it. But literally, here, we have confirmation that the second thing that she did in thinking that this person should work for Marvel was to go and check out her Twitter, which says nothing about her writing quality. And the whole point, I would say, is that if this person had been someone who said bad things about Marvel, who was part of ComicsGate, or who was just a staunch conservative, they would have been discounted from any further processes whatsoever. And again, this is your political ideology test to make sure that they only get people in there that they want. They keep on saying that they're looking for unique voices. They're not looking for unique voices at all. They're looking for voices that have a unique perspective on the exact same way that they think. That's about it. Now, the third thing that I have confirmation of is how and why books are brought back. And this one, again, extremely important, because I had covered when The Unstoppable Wasp got rebooted. And it literally said, a tagline on the very first advertisement for the new series was, back by popular demand. And that was, I said at the time, just a straight up lie, because no one wanted this book. Its sales were in the tank. No one wanted to buy this book. And so it got canceled. How in the world can they say it's back by popular demand? Well, we have a statement in this podcast that shows exactly what they mean by back by popular demand. One of these editors is talking about The Unstoppable Wasp and how it came back. And she said, the trades did well enough that we were able to bring it back. And it's pretty miraculous because that doesn't happen a lot. Okay. I would take it doesn't happen a lot with a grain of salt, but the other part of it, I certainly believe her to be telling the truth in the fact that the reason why they brought this back was because it was a popular trade. Now, right after she says this, Sana Amanat confirms what it means to be popular in a trade, because that's significant in itself. This is Sana Amanat speaking. She says, it's also one of those books where there was a lot of, it was getting a lot of critical acclaim. And library associations and parent associations were just loving the concept of it. So that's Sana Amanat speaking. And there's a whole lot to unpack right there. First of all, the editor had said that it was brought back. The Wasp, this low-selling comic that nobody liked, was brought back because it did well in the trades. And Sana Amanat is saying it did well in the trades because library associations and parent associations loved the concept of it and therefore ordered it. So we see here that it's not about the reader of comics at all. Their base is not about readers of comics. Now, again, I did another video about this. When Marvel declared themselves a lifestyle brand, I said that, look, how a lifestyle branding actually works is they need to target it towards a certain subculture. And I said at that time, that certain subculture does not seem to be comic readers at all. It seems to be SJWs. And again, here is some confirmation of that right here. They don't care about the readers of the comic. They had the comic canceled on them, and they looked for a way to reboot it through library associations and parent associations. And of these library associations and parent associations, it's not that they read the book and thought it was good, or the trade paperback and thought it was good. They loved the concept of it. You see, they just put out concepts and say to these library associations and these parent associations, this is the concept for this book. And then they all order it, not knowing what's in the book, really, or reading the book. So it's not based upon the merit of the book at all. It's based upon the concept of the book. And so it is these associations that are important. It is these associations that are the ones who are their actual target for their lifestyle branding, and what they use to say that, yes, this was something that is brought back by popular demand. Popular demand by library associations and parent associations. Now, I want to bring in two other things with this. I have had a number of dealings with library associations and things like that in my life. In my experience, I would say that library associations are mainly women, and librarians are mainly women. And I would also say that parent associations would probably be mainly women. And in certainly the library associations, we'll say leaning towards the far left. These are the kinds of people that you get in these associations, in my estimation, in my experience. And so, of course, you write something for this audience of associations, a concept that they will like, and that's where you get your back by popular demand from. So you'd see that they're not writing for us as customers. They're writing for these associations. Associations which are mainly feminine and far leftist. And I would say that's the direction that their books are going in. And I have, again, confirmation of that fact right here in this podcast. Because you have Sana Amanat. Now, she's talking about in one part of this podcast what her podcasts here are actually about. They're saying that they're using these podcasts to crystallize their mission statement of what they're doing at Marvel. And this is Sana Amanat, who is number 2 at Marvel. And so they're crystallizing what they see as their mission here at Marvel. And one of the things that they did for these podcasts during this year, one of the very important episodes that they specifically talk about here under that clarification of their statement, was an episode where they only talked about the hair of these superheroes. And I know I have to say this a lot, but I am not joking. Quite literally, this is what the whole episode was about. And Sana Amanat says here that that was an extremely important episode because the hair of these heroines, superheroines, they help define their identity and their identity as superheroes. Quite specifically, this is what she says. And in another video, I covered the fact that when they were making Marvel Rising, she and Court Lane said straight out that the reason why they went to who they went to do the animation for this Marvel Rising project was because they were able to put emotions on the faces of these people and make their hair more lively. And this is what they specifically talked about, that they are writing and doing these kinds of projects specifically to put in more emotion. And again, I would say the feminine element is what they are trying to attract. And we have here, again, in this podcast, these two female editors talking about some of their favorite books during this year. And those books would include, I'll give you a short list because they talked about a number of books, but I'll give you a short list of some of them that they really, really liked. They would include Squirrel Girl, Ironheart, Champions, Quicksilver, West Coast Avengers, and The Runaways. And this is what they talk about. I'm going to concentrate on two of them, Squirrel Girl and The Runaways. One thing that they talked about with The Runaways was that the editor was saying that she read an entire book of The Runaways where they did nothing but sit around in a hospital and talk, and it was so riveting to her. And then she had realized that it had been 11 issues of this comic, and it was all like that. And it was all riveting to her. So this is the kind of comic that they're talking about. And it was riveting to her because all of that conversation allowed the feelings to flow of these characters. And also the artist, she said, paid close attention to things like the fashion sense of these characters. Again, extremely feminine way to look at a comic book. This is not the way that a guy would look at a comic book. Now, I'm thinking about a video that Richard did over at Diversity in Comics talking about the What If Magique, where he pulled out a page and said, look, you could do this page and put 5 small word balloons in it and it would be done. And it would convey the exact same thing. Why are you not doing that? Why are you not editing that way? Why are they not editing that way? Because they don't want to edit that way. They want these giant word balloons. And besides that, quickly, I'll say about Squirrel Girl. One of the things they loved about Squirrel Girl, and they go on about how much they love Squirrel Girl, and how great it is, and how great a story it is, and how great art it is. They specifically said that this is some of the best art this artist has ever made. And I'm looking at this book going, this is garbage, and so is everybody else. I haven't looked at the numbers for Squirrel Girl on Comic-Con for about, I don't know, it was January, I think, the last time I looked at it, and it was below 10,000. It was 9,000 that they shipped, not that they sold, that they shipped of this comic at that time. Below 10,000 units. Nobody wants this book, but they're talking about how beautiful this book is, how great it is, how much the story is riveting, how much they love Squirrel Girl and would like to cosplay as her because she's cute and cuddly. Again, all of these feminine elements are coming into this story. And that's the thing. You can see through this entire podcast, even though I know it's called Women of Marvel, but they are feminizing everything in the company. And that's what their specific goal is. I mean, that's what Sana Amanat was saying. She's talking about crystallizing their mission statement and then saying that one of those very important podcasts that crystallized their mission statement was to talk specifically about how the superhero's hair affects how they are a superhero and defines their identity. I'm sorry, but that does not appeal to a male reader at all. So with all of this, where am I going with all of this? Well, here's the thing. All right. So they're using these political ideology tests to get these people into the company who are whipped, who are going to have voices that are exactly like them and write things that they tell them to do according to their political ideology. That's how they write. All right. And when these things do poorly because nobody is hired on merit, then they have a mulligan. They have a do-over. They say that, these books were canceled, but we'll feed it to our leftist library associations and parent associations, and they'll buy a whole bunch of them, sight unseen, and we'll use that to say, hey, look, we should reboot this because it's doing so well in the trade. So that's their mulligan. That's their backup plan in case everything fails, which it does because they're writing garbage. And so that's how they get to promote these characters again and again. Now, here's the thing. What does 2019 look like for this company? They talked about also in this podcast that they had already had their session of what 2019 looks like for Marvel. Everybody at Marvel got together and they had their meeting and said, this is what 2019 is going to look like. And Sana Amanat gives a very clear indication of what 2019 looks like. She says, 2019 is the year of Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel is going to get shoved down your throat in 2019. Now, the thing is about Captain Marvel is, I would say, this is their ultimate do-over. This is their ultimate mulligan. Everything has been failing for them, and this is going to be the thing that they are going to use to say, see, everything we have been doing so far, people want it. Because you have Captain Marvel. She has never done well in the comics. They have been trying for years to make her the head of their comics, to make her the main character that leads the comic books. It has never worked. All of her comics have failed in one way or another. And they have failed, of course, because you have people like these editors who are specifically only writing a book for themselves. What they're being told at Marvel is that if you want to edit the book, what you need to do is just make it so that it's appealing to you. If it's appealing to you, then we'll go out and find an audience that's just like you, and that's the audience that's going to buy this book, and therefore it will do well. That's their entire concept, and that's where these editors seem to be coming from. That's why they love Runaways and all of the massive balloons full of text that no one else wants to read. They like it, therefore they think it's the greatest thing in the world, and therefore they are being told by Marvel, push that because that's your voice. Because, again, I didn't mention this before. One of the quotes from Sana Amanat in this podcast is, "I think it's time for the next generation of creators and editors to bring their own voice to the page," and that really is what Marvel is about. You see, it is about these creators and these editors bringing their voice to the comics and to the page. They're trying to bring their voice, not the voice of the people who are reading the book, not what your actual customers want, but they're saying to them, put your voice down on the page. What you like. Of course, you can put down what you like because you've already gone through our political ideology test and we know exactly what you like, and therefore we will go and find an audience who is just like you. And it's been failing, and it's been failing spectacularly with Captain Marvel. Certainly with the latest Captain Marvel, the Life of Captain Marvel book that came out, I did a number of videos on the first 2 issues. It is garbage. It's just people sitting around and talking. Like this woman here says that she loves. And all of these people on this podcast talk about how much they enjoy this book. Nobody else enjoys this book but these people. And it has been failing, and they have been canceling it. And they use their mulligan already of these library associations and their parent associations to try and prop it up again. And these things also have been failing. So what they're doing for 2019 is to promote the Captain Marvel movie as much as possible. If it takes off, it's going to be their go-to to support everything that they're doing in the comic books right now and have been doing for the last number of years. They're going to say, look, Captain Marvel was a success, a huge success on the screen. People really want this character and how she is written and what she stands for. Therefore, since that character comes from the source material of all that we are doing at Marvel over the last 6 years or so, because they specifically said that they concentrated on making her out of those last couple of years in the movie. That's where the character has come from. They're going to use this to say, look, it's actually a success. It's a major success. Therefore, everything we've been doing in the comics, every way that we have been producing comics and been using these library associations and parent associations to actually support what we've been doing is correct. And this is the way that the company should go in the future. And I would say that this is why ComicsGate is so needed. We need to make sure that normies know that this is what is going on. We need to let them know that this is Marvel's point, the same as Star Wars, where the future is female, the Force is female. This is their woke point within the Marvel universe, within the MCU. And this is what 2019 is going to be for them. And if they actually get a success out of this movie, I would say even a modest success out of this movie, they are going to take that as confirmation to drive everything else into the ground with this far leftist ideology that has taken over everything within the comics. So I know this is a long video, but it was extremely important, I think, to talk about all of this. If I give you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about this and whether or not I actually made any sense with this. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.